Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was 33, and my mother, Martha, still stood in my doorway like a foreman, tapping a printed speech with her nail, like she was keeping time on my pulse. "Do not improvise," she said, without even looking at me. "This is the voice of Stonebridge." The voice of Stonebridge sounded like a bond prospectus written by a nervous accountant. But I nodded, tied the burgundy tie she claimed photographed well, and tucked the stupid printout into my briefcase next to a box of Little League gift cards for the rec center kids over on East Ninth. I wasn't skipping that drop, not even for this investor circus. Our company, Stonebridge Realty Group, had our name on 57 buildings across 3 counties. But Hanley Coal Partners still owned the lion's share, so every time I sneezed, it had to be board approved and mother blessed. The partnership was founded by the Hanley, Cole, and Shore families. Walter Shore still chairs the board. Martha liked to pretend she ran the place with legacy and elegance. What she really ran it with was a death grip. Quick note: before we continue, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. It helps us see where you're tuning in from and figure out the best time to post new stories. Thanks. Now let's get into it. The ballroom smelled like money trying not to sweat. 8 investors, 3 board members, a PR firm VP, and my mother in the back row with her arms crossed, and that looked like she was waiting for me to mispronounce EBITDA. I started talking. Her words. Projected returns in the third quarter exceed 4.6%. I heard a chair scrape. My face flushed, and my tongue locked up like it was glued to the roof of my mouth. I set the pages down, looked around the table. The silence hit harder than any correction. "Look," I said, "you're not here for my mother's bullet points. You want to know if we can buy ugly and fix it without gutting the whole block." I rolled my shoulders back and started again, this time in my voice. I told them about the Veterans Motel on Route 21, where we kept 21 tenants housed through renovations, full services, no cuts. About the laundromat on Chestnut, whose lease we renegotiated down by $190 a month so the owner wouldn't shut down. About the rec center roof we fixed without demanding a plaque or a press release. I said Stonebridge makes its money by lifting the block, not bleeding it. And when a block stands, it pays you back. Slow, steady, proud. 2 guys nodded. One older investor smiled. Then one of the board members leaned forward and asked the first real question of the day. "What about risk?" I didn't flinch. "We do boring work on time and don't overpromise. That's the model." He smiled back. And suddenly the energy shifted. Phones went down. Pens started moving. I walked out 30 minutes later with 6 firm handshakes, 1 warm maybe, and 1 guy who said, "Send terms by end of week." My mother didn't move. I passed her without slowing down. "You just made yourself look small," she snapped under her breath. I didn't answer. I took the stairs 2 at a time, hit the sidewalk, and let the cold air slap me across the face. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The message from Victor was short, but I knew what it meant. Rydell sniffing around our Grant property wasn't just curiosity. It was a clear sign they were preparing a move. They didn't window shop. I stared at the screen for another second, then dropped the phone in the passenger seat and looked back at the shop. She'd taped the napkin to the inside of the door like it was official marketing. "Grand opening in 11 days. Don't be a stranger." Like that's all it took to build something that lasted. I didn't drive off right away. I sat there with my tie loosened, coffee burning my fingers through the lid, and that honey diesel taste still stuck in my mouth. That shop had a leak in the ceiling, no signage, and a floor that looked like it came from a high school gym. But it felt more real than the ballroom I'd just come from. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time. Was that intentional? No question mark. Just her usual tone. Accusation dressed up as concern. I finally drove off. Took a right, then another. I didn't call Victor back. Not yet. The next morning I was in the office by 7, coffee in one hand, the tower file in the other. I skimmed the lease on Grant twice. Nothing about Rydell on paper yet, but I could feel the pressure rising. Something was coming. By 10, I was in meetings. By noon, I'd had 2 calls with lenders and one with legal about an access easement someone forgot to renew. My mother kept circling like a hawk. Lunch with Finley at 1. Board wants a pre-read. Did you thank Hollister for the introduction? I nodded, checked boxes, stayed quiet. But I kept thinking about Melanie behind that counter with salt on her sleeves and a wrench tucked next to the tamper like it belonged there. Someone who knew how to fix things, even when it wasn't pretty. 3 days later, I went back. Same brown paper, same smell, paint and sugar and whatever made the back room smell like someone had been baking while swearing at YouTube tutorials. I didn't knock, just walked in and held up 2 bagels like a peace offering. She blinked at me, wiped her hands on her jeans and said, "Did something explode?" "Not yet. You still testing coffee or just pretending?" She took one of the bagels, broke off the burnt edge, and pointed to the espresso machine. "You're pulling today. Let's see what kind of damage a suit can do." I took off my jacket and rolled up my sleeves. She gave me a 5-second crash course in grind size and pressure, then stepped back like a coach with low expectations. I messed it up 3 times before I got anything that didn't look like mud water. She tasted it, made a face, and poured it out. "Not terrible," she said, "for a first grader. Do I get a sticker?" "You get to sweep the floor." We talked while I swept. Nothing deep, just stuff. Her dad ran a machine shop until he blew out his back. Her mom used to bake for church fundraisers but never liked crowds. Melanie said she got the hands from her dad and the caffeine habit from her mom. "Why coffee?" I asked. "Because it makes tired people feel less hopeless. Also, it's cheaper than therapy." I laughed. Then I asked, "You worried about the clause?" She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. "Every day," she said, serious now. "I signed it because it was the only lease I could afford, and I prayed the building wouldn't change hands. You work for the people who can make it matter." I didn't try to sell her, didn't tell her it was probably safe. I just nodded. "You gonna shut me down?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm trying to shut down the people who might." She studied me for a second, then turned around and started organizing lids. "I believe you," she said, "but don't make me regret that." I grabbed the broom again and started cleaning under the counter. "Don't ruin Saturdays," she said without turning around. I stood up straight. "What?" "That's what you said last time, about being the kind of suit that doesn't ruin Saturdays. I like that." I meant it. "Good," she said, "because I like Saturdays." She slid her phone across the counter again. "Number still work?" "Yeah." "I'll text you if the espresso machine tries to kill me in my sleep." I put my number back in. Same name. M. Laurel and 18th. She gave me a smile, small but real, and tossed me a granola bar on my way out. "Breakfast," she said. "You look like someone who forgets." When I got back to the car, I had 5 emails from the office and 2 from Victor. One said, "Urgent, Grant." The other had a PDF attachment labeled Draft, Rydell Term Sheet. I didn't open it. Instead, I sat there with a granola bar in one hand, watching her inside the shop with a wrench in her pocket and a look on her face like she'd win this thing even if she had to patch the walls with receipts. Then I put the car in drive and headed back to the office. I stared at Victor for a full beat. "What do you mean, check the uniforms?" He didn't answer. Just gave me a look like someone had already said too much. Then he walked off like we hadn't just discussed a major sale that could gut half our portfolio. The problem with Victor was that he always whispered bad news. Never said it straight, never wrote it down. But this felt more like a warning. I went back to my desk and stared at the guest list Martha had sent. 412 names, sorted by family, donor tier, and what floor their foundation suite overlooked. I didn't recognize half of them. The other half had been shaking my hand since I was in middle school. Melanie's name wasn't on it, just a note scribbled in the margin. "Will enter as your guest. No mistakes." That night I opened the garment bag Martha had given her. Black dress, clean lines, high neckline, sharp shoulders, expensive, no doubt. But something about it made my stomach twist. Saturday came fast. Melanie showed up with a six-pack of ginger beer and a nervous smile. The dress fit her perfectly. Boots were polished, but the salt stains clung to the seams. She shrugged when I pointed them out. They're the only ones that don't hurt my feet. You look amazing, I said. She kissed my cheek and handed me a lint roller. You're shedding stress. Clean it up. When we pulled up to Martha's house on Sycamore, I felt my shoulders lock the same way they always did, tight like I was bracing for weather. The house glowed like a catalog. Chandeliers, silver on white linen, a butler I hadn't seen since prom. Melanie walked in like she was born to be there and told him, "Nice cufflinks. Are those vintage?" He grinned like nobody ever noticed. Martha came down the stairs in that ivory jacket she wore when she wanted to look neutral. She air-kissed me and turned to Melanie. "So, you're entrepreneurial," she said, like it was a condition. Melanie smiled and replied, "Depends on the day. Today I'm mostly exhausted." I almost laughed, but I saw the way Martha's eyes narrowed. The night went like that. Martha asked about permits and margins like she was poking a wound. Melanie volleyed back with jokes, calm as ever. Then she did something I didn't expect. She asked Martha about her first year running Stonebridge. Martha blinked like she didn't hear right. "No one asks me that," she said. Melanie just waited. "There was a boiler leak on Monroe that flooded the crawl space," Martha finally said, "and a partner who tried to undercut us at every turn." "And you stayed," Melanie said. "Of course, I don't flinch." Melanie nodded. "That's what I figured." For 1 minute, they almost looked like two people in the same room, not two forces about to collide. Then the butler tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Sir, Mr. Vaughn asked if you'd join him in the library. Just a moment." I should have said no. Should have told them it could wait. But I followed him through the hall and into the library, where Victor was already holding out a document. "NDA," he said, "about Rydell." I scanned it. Standard language, except for one clause that practically glowed. Non-disclosure regarding potential asset transfers, meaning they weren't just sniffing, they were structuring. "You serious with this?" I asked. Victor dropped his voice. "They want to strip liabilities and flip the high-value sites, keep the portfolio light. So they dump the low-income buildings." He didn't deny it, just said, "It's a strong offer, short runway." Martha already scheduled a meeting with them Tuesday. My hand tightened around the folder. She didn't mention that. Victor didn't blink. "You want in the room? You better decide fast." I didn't sign it. I left it on the table and walked out without a word. Back at the dinner table, dessert had arrived. Small, white plates. Something with gold dust and berries. Martha was smiling like nothing had happened. Then a housekeeper came in with a black garment bag and handed it to Melanie. Martha nodded toward it and said, "For the Founders' Day Gala. Dress code is strict. Happy to help." Melanie took the bag with both hands, polite smile locked in place. I looked at my mother, but she didn't look back. In the car, Melanie leaned her head against the window for a second, then said, "That woman doesn't like me." "She respects you," I said. "That's rare." "She respects time," Melanie corrected, "and I didn't waste hers. I'll take that." She laughed once, dry but not bitter. "That house has too many chairs and not enough questions." I told her the gala was loud, formal, and stupid. I promised I'd walk her in myself. "Can't wait," she said, and didn't sound sarcastic. Thursday afternoon, I stopped by her shop to check in. The place smelled like almond syrup and frustration. "Sink's leaking again," she said, pointing at the pipe. "You want to hold the flashlight or pretend you know what you're doing?" "I'll do both." We crouched under the sink like kids in a blanket fort while she argued with a YouTube plumber. She swore, I held the light, and finally the drip stopped. We high-fived like we just cured cancer. She handed me a latte, on the house. I took a sip and leaned against the counter. You ever think about quitting? I asked. Every third Thursday, she said. You? I nodded. But I'm not working for my mom. I'm working for the buildings. The mom part is loud, she said, deadpan. That's one way to put it. That night my phone buzzed at 10:30. It was Martha. She sent a revised guest list. Same 412 names. Still no Melanie. Just another message. We do not embarrass ourselves. I flipped the phone face down and stared at the closet, where Melanie's garment bag hung next to my tux. The tent in our garden looked like something out of a billionaire's Pinterest board. White peaks, gold trim, string lights so precise they looked like they were drawn with a ruler. The liquor table had 4 brands of rye and 6 types of bitters. Martha didn't throw events. She built control rooms. I arrived early because I was told to. A text from Martha at 4:45. Be visible. Be sharp. No speeches unless asked. Donors arrived with suits so stiff they cracked. Council members, developers, a few people I barely recognized from Dad's Rolodex days. I got pulled into a circle with Finley Gresham and a parks commissioner who kept winking like he knew something the rest of us didn't. We did the handshake routine, fake smiles, all teeth. I checked my phone twice. Nothing from Melanie. By 7:15, I started to feel it in my chest. Just a buzz of something off. I looked again. Still nothing. I stepped away from the caterer's station and moved toward the main gate. Security had phones out. One of the event coordinators was squinting at her iPad. I saw a dress through the crowd. Black, sharp lines, her boots just visible below the hem. She stood there, arms crossed, calm face, eyes tight. I'm here with Stephen Hanley, I heard her say. The woman holding the list tilted her head, then tapped, scrolled, shook it once. I don't see you here. I was invited, Melanie said. Stephen told me he'd walk me in. I can't admit you without a code or name on file, the woman said, her voice edging on customer service frustration. Melanie pulled out her phone. I've called him 3 times. That's when I felt it. Vibration in my jacket. I checked. 3 missed calls. I'd had my ringer off. My chest dropped like an elevator. I pushed through the cluster of guests, jogged up to the entrance, and saw her. Her jaw locked. Eyes glossy but not blinking. Still holding the invite bag Martha had given her. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She didn't yell, didn't cry. Just looked at me and said, I waited 23 minutes. I'm so sorry, I said, finally breathing. They should have had your name. They didn't, she said, flat. The coordinator hovered nearby, clearly unsure if she was about to get fired. I turned to her and said, Add her now. She tapped something on her tablet. Done. We stepped inside together. My hand touched the small of her back. She didn't move away, but she didn't lean in either. Then someone in a sequined dress tapped Melanie's shoulder. Could I get a top off? The woman asked, holding out her glass like it was obvious. Melanie stared at her for a second, then said, I'm a guest. The woman blinked, looked at her dress, and raised an eyebrow. Oh, my mistake. A man behind her chuckled. Then a camera clicked. Melanie didn't say another word. She took a glass of champagne from a passing tray and stood still. Head up, shoulders back, like she'd practiced for this. We walked through the crowd together, but the mood stuck like static. People were staring. Not outright, but sideways, the way people do when they think you don't belong. I stepped away for 5 minutes. Just 5. Some developer from Phoenix was convinced we were out of Sazerac and thought it was my personal job to fix it. I calmed him down, found a bottle, handed it off to the bartender. When I came back, Melanie was near the edge of the dance floor, talking to no one. A man with a full glass of red bumped into her. Backwards, sudden, no warning. It hit her side and bled straight down the black fabric. The man said, "Oh, clumsy me," and smiled like it wasn't clumsy at all. I locked eyes with him. His smirk didn't fade. Melanie looked at me. That 1 second of eye contact burned. She set the glass down and walked straight past me. "Mel," I called. She didn't stop. Outside, the valet had flagged a cab. The headlights hit her as she crossed the stones. A few photographers lingered by the entrance. One snapped a picture. She didn't flinch. She opened the door, got in, and closed it with a soft click. The brake lights glowed. I reached the car just as it pulled away. Inside, I found Martha standing by the dessert table, calmly placing strawberries on top of a panna cotta like we were at a brunch. "She left," I said. "Unfortunate misunderstandings happen," she replied. I looked at her. "That was planned." She didn't answer. "Who gave her that dress?" I asked. "I did. I thought it would fit," she said, like she hadn't just orchestrated a humiliation. "You gave her the same dress the catering staff wears." Martha's eyes didn't blink. "I wouldn't know what the catering uniforms look like. I'm not part of logistics." I stared at her for 3 whole seconds. She looked at me the same way she did when I was 7 and got a B in math, like I'd let the family down. I left, just turned and walked out through the side path without a word. In the car, I didn't trust myself to speak. My hands were shaking. I called Melanie, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Called a 3rd time. Still nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I kept watching that moment. Her standing at the gate, holding the dress bag, hearing someone laugh, and knowing exactly what had happened before I did. I knew then it wasn't an accident. It was a setup. And it worked. The hallway outside the boardroom was quiet, thick carpeted, clean enough to feel like a museum. I glanced at Melanie. She was staring at the old man with the cane like she was trying to place him. He grinned and pointed the tip of his cane at her shoes. "Same boots," he said. "You used to kick your heels against the back of my truck with those." She blinked once, fast. "Walter?" Her voice cracked just a little. "In the flesh," he said, "though less of it now." He looked over at me. "And you, Stephen. Come in." The double doors opened into the main boardroom. 9 people sat at the table. Martha was at the far end, perfectly still. Victor was 2 seats down, flipping a pen like it owed him money. The legal team was already seated. Coffee, tablets, everyone too calm. Walter took the head seat. Walter Shore, a founding partner at Hanley Cole, and Melanie's maternal grandfather. I stood behind one of the chairs, unsure if I was supposed to sit. He waved at me. "Sit. You earned a seat, even if nobody told you." Melanie didn't move right away. She was still watching her grandfather like the rug was going to shift under her. He looked straight at her. "You kept me waiting 10 minutes, granddaughter." She let out a slow breath and sat beside me. Walter leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands folded like he was about to teach a class. "Let's make this simple," he said. "This is my granddaughter, Melanie Shore. She never traded on my name or asked for shortcuts. 4 years, 6 buildings, never missed a vendor deadline, never lost a permit window, and when a boiler failed in January, she had space heaters delivered by dinner time. She's done the job better than anyone here knew." No one spoke, not even Martha. Walter turned to legal. A woman in a sharp gray blazer slid a folder to the center of the table. "This paperwork," he said, "was filed 6 months ago, effective this morning. Melanie is now Chief Executive Officer of Hanley Cole. She will be assuming full operational control of Stonebridge." My throat tightened. Martha leaned forward. "You cannot just install someone." Walter raised a hand without looking at her. "Interruption noted," he said. The legal woman slid another sheet across the table. It was a garment invoice. Style number, quantity, bill to name. Martha Hanley. Item 10 read, "Special request. Style match for guest." Victor shifted in his seat. The legal rep dropped another page. Event emails, logistics notes, a message from the uniform vendor, Confirming guest dress will match catering standard, per request. Walter didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. We don't humiliate people on my watch, he said, eyes locked on Martha. We don't exploit trust, and we do not negotiate with asset strippers behind the board's back. He turned to me. Stephen, tell me why we should keep you. I sat forward, palms flat. Because I care more about the buildings than I do about ego, I said. Because I didn't sign the Rydell deal when I had the chance. Because I'd rather lose a deal than lie to people. And because Martha doesn't speak for me. Melanie didn't react. She just watched me like she was measuring something. Walter nodded. Good answer. Do you trust her? I looked at her. Yes. Walter looked at Melanie. Do you trust him? She was quiet. 1 breath. 2. Then she said, I want him at Stonebridge. Not as a son. As a partner. Walter looked down at the folder, signed something and closed the pen. Done, he said. Effective immediately. Stephen Hanley is co-chief executive officer of Stonebridge Realty Group. Melanie Shore is your partner in full. He turned to Martha. You are suspended pending a formal review of your involvement in the gala incident and for initiating contact with Rydell Partners without board approval. Martha didn't move. She blinked once and sat back in her chair like she'd been unplugged. Victor started to speak. This is... Walter held up a hand again. Then the legal rep slid one final sheet across the table. Email from Victor Vaughn to Rydell Partners, she said, dated 6 days ago, discussing a maintenance carve-out to increase margin in the 4th quarter. Walter didn't say anything. 2 security guards stepped into the room from a side door. They didn't rush. They didn't have to. Victor stood, furious. This is nonsense. Those numbers were preliminary. You sent them to a competitor, Walter said. That's not preliminary. That's betrayal. Victor grabbed his laptop. One of the guards blocked him. Leave it, the guard said. It will secure your access. Victor looked at me like I'd stolen his dog. You'll burn this place down, he hissed. No, I said. We'll fix it. He stormed out, jacket half-buttoned, tie crooked. The boardroom went quiet again. Walter stood slowly. Meeting adjourned. He turned to Melanie. Call me when you're done cleaning house. I'll stay out of it unless you need muscle. She nodded once, eyes sharp. He glanced at me. You chose right, he said. Don't screw it up. Then he walked out with his cane clicking like a clock in a quiet church. Melanie and I stayed in our seats as the room emptied. You good? I asked. No, she said. But I'm ready. She stood. I followed. The room emptied in under a minute, and the corridor felt louder than it was. We walked out of that boardroom and straight into a war room. Melanie didn't blink. I didn't sit down. First move, Rydell. We called the broker, the lawyers, and the project lead in back-to-back calls and froze all talks. I didn't care if they called it unprofessional. Letting them keep one foot in the door would have been worse. By 9 in the morning, we had IT change 3 door codes, killed Victor's remote access, and flagged 7 email domains linked to vendors he'd worked with personally. Melanie didn't raise her voice once. She ran that table like it was a coffee shop rush. Short sentences, fast hands, 0 dead air. We're not bleeding tenants for sport, she said, looking straight at legal. And we're not faking performance to make slides look clean. If that's a problem, speak now. No one did. I hit the properties right after that, one by one. No assistants, no branded SUV. Just me, a clipboard, and a set of keys. At Laurel and 18th, I pulled up Melanie's lease myself. There it was, 3rd paragraph from the bottom. Demolition clause. Tied to a hypothetical sale that hadn't materialized. Buried under vague language. We wrote a 2-page addendum and struck it out. Permanent. Binding. Clean. She acted like it didn't matter. But when I handed her the signed copy, she didn't speak for a second. You good? I asked. I wasn't breathing until now, she said. Thanks. We moved fast. Too much to fix to slow down. We fired a landscaping vendor double billing for edging on both Wednesdays and Fridays. We dropped a pest control company that hadn't shown up in 6 months but still invoiced monthly. And we paid a roofer, man named Curtis, who'd been stiffed nearly $13,000 because Victor lost his paperwork during a transition period. I brought the check down myself. When I handed it to him, the guy leaned against the wall and cried for 30 seconds straight. I looked away. Melanie texted me later. He came by the office with muffins. You created a monster. Then came the boiler at Route 21. A line cracked, heat failed, and we were 24 hours from pipes freezing. 21 veterans, most over 60, no other housing lined up. We didn't ask permission. We pushed the emergency draw, pulled a local crew, and told them we'd feed them if they got it done by Sunday night. Melanie showed up with pizza. I brought my laptop and made calls while sitting on a bucket in the boiler room. We both slept in the office that night. She on the floor with a pillow, me in a chair by the copier. Next morning, heat was on, tenants stayed put, and the math still worked. That's what mattered. I had to testify in a closed session with the board about the gala mess. I didn't dress it up. I told them what I saw, what I heard, and what I believed was orchestrated. I didn't mention Martha by name more than necessary. Just facts. Just tone. I didn't need to swing. The evidence already had weight. She wasn't there. Didn't send a statement. Didn't try to justify any of it. I wasn't sure if that was guilt or calculation. Melanie and I launched a whistleblower tip line the same week. It was barely public for 2 days before tips started trickling in, mostly petty, like a supply closet misuse or an inflated drywall invoice. But one came in about kickbacks on signage deals, logo placement, window branding, exterior boards. We traced it. 4 vendors, all linked to Victor. One of them had wired a consulting bonus to an LLC with no listed business license. Legal opened a file. Melanie and I started arguing more, but not the bad kind. Real debates. There was a redevelopment in Kenmore, and she wanted to push the unit count. I wanted to preserve the lot's parking for elderly tenants. It got loud once. She said I was thinking like an old man. I said she was thinking like a spreadsheet. We met in the middle, increased units, added a shuttle to the train. Neighborhood Association dropped its lawsuit. We called that a win. Then came the coffee shop. It opened on a Thursday, rain pounding like someone turned up the faucet. I showed up anyway, stood behind the counter trying not to look like a suit and jeans. I wiped down tables and nearly shattered a milk pitcher. Melanie laughed so hard she choked on her own cappuccino. "You're fine at spreadsheets," she said, taking the pitcher from my hand. "Step away from the steam wand before you burn the place down." I nodded, held my hands up like I was under arrest, and went to clean the trash bin. That night, I asked her out. For real. No leaks, no contracts, no fried nerves. Just dinner. She said yes, like she'd already been waiting. We ate rotisserie chicken in a place with cracked leather booths and sticky menus. I wore a hoodie. She wore the same boots with the salt line still visible. We laughed like it was prom night and we'd just ditched the dance. When I walked her to her door, she didn't say anything, just pulled me in by the shirt and kissed me like the deal was already signed. The next morning, we walked into the office together. I opened the door. She stepped through first. A few people looked up. Some smiled. Nobody said a word. They didn't have to. Melanie and I walked in every morning like we'd been doing it for years, not months. The energy shifted fast. People stopped waiting for permission and started asking for answers. We gave them. Then May came, and the vote hit. Martha lost her board seat. It wasn't close. 8-1. The official memo landed 2 hours later with phrases like breach of fiduciary duty and conduct prejudicial to the company's interests. I read it once, deleted it, and didn't forward it to anyone. Her silence didn't last. Not even a day. She texted me the next morning. "This is childish. Fix it." I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. Just left it there, blinking. By June, her name stopped opening doors. People who used to greet her with hugs started saying they were just heading into a meeting. The club pulled her house account with a letter full of words like regretfully and reputation. A charity she chaired for 8 years told her they had decided to go another direction on the fall luncheon. She still had teeth. Angry letters. Long voicemails. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist about reputational damage that wasn't signed by a partner. It didn't land. By August, I thought maybe that was the end of it. Then I got a photo and a text from someone at the East 9th Rec Center. My mother, standing near a folding table, handing out granola bars to kids with no camera crew, no clipboard, no crowd. She looked small, no makeup. Hair pulled back in a way I hadn't seen since I was a kid. She was holding a juice box and talking to a girl who couldn't have been older than 7. That wasn't a statement. That wasn't PR. That was something else. She kept showing up. Tuesdays and Fridays. No headlines, no requests, just stacking canned food and helping with the reading circle. The staff didn't make a fuss. They didn't know her history, and she didn't offer it. I didn't go. Not right away. I didn't want to test whatever was happening. I needed it to bake longer before I opened the oven. Meanwhile, we were still scrubbing Stonebridge from the inside out. The inspector flagged the Grant Tower for code issues, old venting, cracked seals, a staircase light tied to a broken timer. Nothing that endangered lives, but sloppy, avoidable stuff that landed on my plate. I owned it. We fixed everything in 48 hours. Sent a letter to tenants that used real words, not legal ones. We're fixing what should have been done already. We're sorry we missed it. Thank you for your patience. Short, clear, human. I signed it myself. Melanie showed up at Kenmore that same week when a pipe burst in Unit 402. Woman with 3 kids had water coming through her bedroom ceiling. No time for a contractor to play phone tag. Melanie walked through it with her. No umbrella, no clipboard, just a notebook and a pen that barely worked. She said, "We'll pay for your hotel until it's dry." The woman asked, "For real?" Melanie said, "For real." 3 months later, I ran into that same woman at a grocery store in South Point. She recognized me, walked straight up, and hugged me like I'd helped her through chemo. Said her kids still talk about Miss M. I passed that story to Melanie. She didn't say anything at first. Then she said, "That's why we don't skip steps." Rydell didn't go away quietly. They tried to play dirty. Someone leaked an old draft memo we'd binned, an early, overly aggressive development model that had Melanie's name in the margins. They pitched it to the press like we were planning to gut whole neighborhoods. It backfired hard. One of their execs got caught on an open microphone at a panel event calling our tenants just entries on a spreadsheet. The audio hit social in under 20 minutes. Our phones blew up. Tenants called to thank us. A city council member emailed Melanie directly, "Keep going, we're watching." It felt good. Not loud good. Solid good. Like laying bricks in straight lines. Then came the note. I found it on my desk one Wednesday morning in late October. Handwritten. No perfume. No threats. Just folded once and placed under my stapler. "Stephen, I don't expect to be forgiven. But I am trying to be better. Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I sat with it for half the day. Showed it to Melanie, who read it, handed it back and said, "Your call." That afternoon, I met her at a park bench on the east side of Grant. Cold air, red leaves, a kid yelling at pigeons near the fountain. She looked older. Not just tired, aged. Like time finally caught her and refused to let go. "I can't fix what I did," she said before I even sat down. "I can only outwork it." I nodded. "There's a food pantry near Eastview," I told her. "They need drivers on Saturdays. There's also a shelter off Fremont that needs people who show up when no one else does." She pulled out a notebook from her purse and wrote both down, slow and neat. "Thank you," she said, tucking it away. I stood. "I have a meeting back at Grant." "I figured," she said. We didn't hug. We didn't rehash. I just turned, walked down the path, and didn't look back. Some things take as long as they take. The tent was supposed to be storm-rated. It wasn't. 5 minutes before the vows, a gust came through like it had a grudge. Chairs toppled, flowers went airborne, and someone shouted, "Hold the poles!" like it was a battle cry. And people did. Friends, family, even a neighbor who'd wandered in from 2 houses down. Everyone grabbed a post, a rope, a corner. By the time the wind died, the tent was still standing. Half the guests were laughing, and nobody cared that the aisle runner was soaked through. Walter walked Melanie down the grass. He was steady, but slow, his left leg dragging just enough to make me hold my breath with each step. He reached me, patted my shoulder and whispered, "Don't overcoach life. Just keep your hands steady." It sounded like advice for a faucet, but it landed anyway. She looked at me like we were already halfway through the vows. I didn't need a speech. I just said, "Hey," and she smiled. Martha sat in the last row, quiet. She had a paper program folded into a fan, one knee crossed over the other, the exact same posture I remembered from a dozen galas. But she didn't look polished. She looked like she was trying to hold her breath through it. She cried during the vows. Not loud, not for show. Just a quiet streak down her cheek that she wiped with the back of her hand like it surprised her. The reception was chaos in all the best ways. We served smoked chicken from a rented grill, and Melanie had stayed up baking cookies at 2 in the morning because she didn't trust the bakery to get the texture right. There was a tray labeled "burnt but edible." They vanished first. The DJ didn't know how to mix songs. He had one job: play stuff people can dance to. He played 3 slow jams in a row and then tried to redeem himself with a ska track that cleared the floor. We danced anyway. Work didn't stop. 2 closings hit the Monday after. A surprise roof leak on a 6 unit on Waverly dropped midweek. We called in Trina, a former portfolio lead who didn't care about dress codes and made Gantt charts like they were art. She took one look at our schedules, slapped a vacation calendar on the wall and said, "Go. Honeymoon. No laptops." That move saved our sanity. 14 months later, I became a father twice in 3 minutes. Jonah Reed came out first at 2:17 in the morning. Lila Mae followed at 2:19. I held them both like I was afraid I'd break something. I cried so hard the nurse asked me if I needed oxygen. Melanie laughed and said, "He's fine, just finally off mute." We didn't make a big announcement, just a quiet message to the team and a photo texted to the board. Martha didn't flood us with advice or call with critiques. She mailed a letter with 2 sentences. "Congratulations. Enclosed is a donation to East 9th Rec Center in the twins' honor." Melanie sent her a picture of Jonah and Lila in matching onesies that said, "Future tenants." Martha texted back one word, "Thank you." We set boundaries early. No surprise visits, no undermining, no work talk at family dinners. Melanie was clear about the rules. I backed her up. Martha didn't test them. She sent postcards instead of dropping in. Showed up when invited. Never asked for control of anything again. In November, the news broke about Victor. Federal indictment for wire fraud. Pleaded down to avoid trial. Named 2 vendors, both of whom lawyered up so fast their servers crashed. He got 22 months. I read the article once and stuck it in the drawer behind the furnace receipts. Didn't feel like gloating. Felt like closing a leak. We took our bonuses that winter, $250,000 between us after everything, and started a fund. Quiet. No website. No press release. Just a spreadsheet and a mission. Fix roofs, replace boilers, and clean lead paint in buildings we didn't even own. First building was a duplex on Wallace where kids had been sleeping in jackets. They didn't know our names. That's how we wanted it. The coffee shop kept going. We added 4 stools by the window. Bought a second espresso machine after the first one started hissing like it had rabies. I finally learned how to pour a heart in the foam. Mine looked like Idaho. Melanie kissed me anyway. Melanie curled up with Lila on the couch while Jonah was still dragging blocks across the floor, trying to build a tower that could outlast gravity. I sat on the rug, legs crossed, shoes still on, coat still buttoned. just watching it all like it might disappear if I blinked. I'd just gotten home from the prep session for the annual shareholder meeting. Melanie had crushed it in rehearsal. 200 people, 9 figures in collective net worth, and she ran the room like she was reading off a coffee menu. Short, clear, not nervous. "Think they'll clap?" she asked when we got in the car. "They'll clap," I told her, before they even realize they're doing it. Next morning, I stood in the back row with Jonah on my hip while Melanie laid it out. She introduced the Stonebridge Community Covenant, 5% of net from all new deals, permanently earmarked for housing stability and neighborhood projects. No fluff, no apologies. Just, we're doing it. If that's not for you, find another sandbox. The applause didn't wait. That's how we knew it landed. We rolled out the revised Kenmore plan next. More units than the original bid, less parking, but a shuttle line that actually runs. One guy in the back raised his hand and asked, "What happens when it snows?" Melanie looked at him and said, "Come ride it before you complain." That got a chuckle from everyone under 40. In the third row, Martha sat straight-backed in a navy jacket and flats, a legal pad on her lap, but no pen in her hand. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't ask for the mic. She stood and said, "I want to thank the tenants who taught me their names, and the shelter director who let me mop floors even when I got in the way. And I want to say I'm proud of my son, and proud of the woman he married." That was it. She sat back down. Didn't look at me, didn't cry, didn't grab the moment for herself. Just said it like a fact. I appreciated that more than I can say. Afterward, a reporter caught me by the side door and asked, "Was cutting Rydell personal?" "No," I said. "It was math and values. The math didn't lie, and the values didn't bend." Later that month, Rydell defaulted on 2 over-leveraged projects, both in cities where they'd slashed maintenance and ignored tenant complaints. Nobody from our side commented. I didn't cheer. I just closed the article and finally slept a full night. Walter showed up for dinner that week, moving slower but still sharp. On the way out, he bent down, kissed Lila's forehead, and let Jonah smack his cane like it was a drum. "You did right, both of you," he said. On the drive home that night, Melanie looked out the window and said, "Can we go by the shop?" We pulled up to Laurel and 18th. The place was glowing. 2 college kids were studying at the window table. One barista waved when he saw us. The same thrifted counter was still there. The second espresso machine we bought had a dent in the side now from someone slamming a tamper too hard. Melanie squeezed my hand. "Still in?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "I'm in until I'm ash." She didn't say anything, just leaned into my side, and we stood there like we were back at day 6, watching the paint dry and hoping the pipes wouldn't burst. That night at home, Martha showed up for dinner. She didn't wear perfume or carry a bottle of wine. She just came in, helped set the table, and cleared plates after. She handed Jonah a used paperback about bridges, said it was one of mine from middle school, and sat on the floor with Lila to build a block tower that kept falling sideways. Every time it tipped, she laughed. She didn't try to teach, didn't try to control, just kept rebuilding. I walked her to the door when it got late. She looked tired, but not hollow, just worn in. "Thank you for letting me try," she said. I opened the door for her and said, "Thank you for trying." We left it there. Not perfect, not poetic. Just 2 people still working on something steady, the kind of ending I could live with. Would you have forgiven someone like Martha after everything she did? If this story hit home, drop a comment, like, and subscribe. It's just 1 click, but means everything to us. Love you guys.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.